Let's building a communication style that earns respect without saying a word so far. We've talked about setting boundaries, responding calmly, and not allowing others to treat you in ways that violate your dignity. But let's take it one step further. Let's talk about the energy you bring into a room, even before you say anything. Because respect is not just about what you say, it's about how you carry yourself. You've seen people like this. They walk into a room, and without speaking, everyone knows they're confident, not arrogant, not loud, just calm, grounded, present. That's not magic, that's built. And you can build it too, with small habits that compound over time. Here are 4 powerful ones. 1. Slow down when you speak. People often rush their words because they feel nervous, or they want to prove themselves, or they're afraid of being interrupted. But rushing signals insecurity. Confident people speak a little slower. They pause between sentences. They allow silence. Not because they're unsure, because they know their words carry weight. Try it. Next time you speak, slow down just 10%. You'll feel the difference. So will everyone around you. 2. Look people in the eye, not as a challenge, but as a connection. You don't need to stare people down. Just hold eye contact long enough to show you're fully present. If you're speaking in a group, shift your gaze naturally from person to person, like you're inviting them into the conversation. Eye contact builds trust. It says, I'm here, I see you, I'm not hiding. And trust builds respect. 3. Replace over-explaining with clarity. So many people sabotage their own authority by over-explaining everything. They say things like, I'm sorry, I don't know if this makes sense, but maybe I'm wrong. But I'm probably overthinking this. But I just thought. Stop. You don't need to apologize for having thoughts. You don't need to shrink your ideas to make others feel more comfortable. Instead, say what you mean, then stop talking. I believe this approach will work because of a B and C. What do you think? Clear, simple, confident. When you speak clearly, people listen differently. 4. Use silence as a tool, not a punishment. Most of us are uncomfortable with silence, so we fill it with noise, with nervous laughter, with pointless words. But silence can be one of your strongest tools. It gives space for your words to land. It gives others time to reflect, and it gives you presence. Let's say someone challenges you in a disrespectful way. Instead of jumping in to defend yourself, try this. Pause, look at them, then calmly ask, is there something specific you'd like to address? The silence before the question will often speak louder than the question itself. It signals that you're not shaken, that you're in control. And that's how respect is earned, not demanded. Now, let's tie everything together. What do all these strategies have in common? They're about self-respect first. Because when you respect yourself, your time, your energy, your values, other people start to reflect that. You set the tone. You decide what's acceptable. You teach people how to treat you not by force, not by fear, but by example. Let's go back to that quote from Dr. Phil McGrath. You teach people how to treat you. Every word you say, every boundary you set, every time you pause instead of pleasing, you're teaching them. So teach them well. And remember, this isn't about being perfect. It's not about never getting flustered or always knowing the right words. It's about showing up with intention. It's about practicing. It's about doing it a little better each day. You're not just changing how people treat you. You're changing how you see yourself. And when that shifts, everything else will follow. So the next time you feel disrespected or ignored or dismissed, don't ask, why are they treating me this way? Instead, ask, what am I teaching them and what do I want to teach them instead? That question is the beginning of every transformation. How to respond when someone disrespects you without losing your cool. Now let's talk about what to do when it's too late. When someone already said something that stings. When you already feel dismissed, ignored, or talked down to, and your instinct. Maybe you want to snap back. Maybe you want to stay quiet, but inside you're boiling. Maybe you're just frozen, wondering, did that really just happen? We've all been there. Someone makes a passive-aggressive comment. Someone cuts you off in a meeting. Someone laughs at your idea. Or worse, acts like it was theirs all along. So how do you respond? How do you protect your self-worth without looking defensive or aggressive? Most people fall into two extremes. They either explode, yell, argue, try to win, or they shrink and pretend it didn't bother them, while quietly losing self-respect. But there's a third option, one that's powerful, respectful, and surprisingly effective. And it all begins with this mindset. Teach people how to treat you not by reacting emotionally, but by responding intentionally. Let's break that down with a real-world scenario. Say you're in a team meeting. You make a suggestion about how to streamline a process. A coworker rolls their eyes and says, "We've already tried that. It didn't work." Next idea. Everyone chuckles. You feel small, embarrassed. But instead of lashing out or staying silent, you take a breath and calmly say, "I understand you've tried something similar before, and maybe it didn't work then. But I believe there's a way to refine it that could actually help us now. If you're open, I'd love to explore it with the team." Boom. What did you just do? You acknowledged their perspective. You showed confidence in your own. You kept your tone calm and your posture strong. You didn't beg for validation, but you also didn't back down. That's power. Not the kind that comes from dominating others, but the kind that comes from self-respect. Now let's look at a different kind of disrespect, one that feels more personal. Imagine a friend, maybe even a close one, says something like, "You always overthink everything. That's why you can't make decisions." It's framed as a joke, but it hits a nerve. You feel judged, maybe even exposed. So what do? Again, you have a choice. You could laugh it off, but you'd be lying to yourself. You could snap at them, but that creates distance and tension. Or you could say, "Hey, I know you didn't mean it in a harsh way. But when you say things like that, it actually makes me feel like you don't take me seriously. I'd appreciate it if we could skip those comments." Simple, direct, not dramatic. You're not accusing, you're not begging, you're simply setting a boundary. And boundaries are not about being cold, they're about being clear. Because clarity builds respect. Here's the truth. Most people don't realize until it's too late. If you don't set boundaries, people will assume you don't have any. And when they assume that, they'll test you. Not always out of malice, sometimes just out of habit. So every time someone crosses a line and you say nothing, you're silently teaching them that it's okay to cross it again. But when you respond with calm, respectful honesty, you shift the entire dynamic. Now, of course, this isn't easy, especially if you've spent years staying quiet, especially if you were taught to always be nice and never make things awkward. But let me tell you something, silence doesn't prevent awkwardness, it just delays it. What prevents awkwardness? Clear, early, respectful communication. And sometimes that starts with just one sentence. "I'd rather not be talked to like that. That joke actually didn't sit well with me. I'm happy to help, but not when I'm in the middle of something urgent. Let's schedule a time." That's it. You don't have to give a speech. You don't have to explain your whole life story. You just have to send a message that says, "I respect myself, and I expect you to do the same." And guess what? Most people will adjust. Not everyone, but most. Because deep down, people respond to energy. If you carry yourself like someone who expects respect, it shows in your voice, in your eye contact, in your calm. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to argue to prove your point. Sometimes, the most powerful statement is your presence. So next time someone crosses a line, pause, breathe, then choose your response like someone who knows their worth. Because once you start doing that consistently, something amazing happens. The people who don't respect boundaries will naturally fall away, and the people who do, they'll start rising to meet your standard. And that's how you quietly, calmly change your life one boundary at a time. Now let's talk about something a bit more subtle, but just as damaging. Sometimes people don't look down on us because we're weak or too nice. Sometimes they do it because we accidentally act in ways that seem a little rude, even if we don't mean to. This might be hard to hear, but stay with me. Because once you see it, you can change it. And changing it might completely transform the way people treat you. Here's the hard truth. If you go through life saying I don't care what people think, and using that as an excuse to never reflect on how you come across, you might be hurting your own relationships without knowing it. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about being fake or walking on eggshells all the time. It's about being aware. Aware of how your words land, aware of timing, and most importantly, aware of context. In fact, this is where most people make the mistake. They value being right more than being considerate of the moment. They care more about correctness than connection. Let me show you what I mean with a real-life example. Imagine a group of friends are sitting together, watching a football match. They're shouting, cheering, fully immersed. You're not really into football, so you casually say, I don't get why people like football. It's just a bunch of guys running around chasing a ball. What's the big deal? Technically, you didn't insult anyone directly. You just stated an opinion. But here's the catch: you killed the vibe. You stepped into someone else's joy and threw cold water on it. And no matter how honest or logical your words were, it came off as dismissive. What do you think happens next? People won't argue with you, they'll laugh it off. But inside, they might label you as that person, the one who always ruins the mood, the one who doesn't know when to speak and when to stay quiet. And little by little, that's how you lose people's respect. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in small, silent judgments, a shrug, a glance, a decision not to invite you next time. The truth is, people don't just respect those who are smart or correct. They respect those who are emotionally intelligent, those who know how to read the room. That's why one of the golden rules of communication is this: always value the context more than the content. Let me say that again. Value the context, the situation, the mood, the emotions, more than just the content of what you want to say. Because what's technically right in the wrong context can still feel very, very wrong. Here's another example, this time in a professional setting. Let's say your friend is opening a new photo studio. They've worked hard for months to prepare everything. It's their grand opening day, and they invite you to come see the place. You walk in, look around, and say, these cameras look pretty outdated. I don't think this setup is going to attract modern clients. You should have invested in better gear. Now, is what you said true? Maybe. But is it helpful in that moment? Absolutely not. Because right now, they're not asking for advice. They're celebrating. They're proud. And in this moment, what they really need is support, not criticism. Your timing turns your words from helpful to hurtful. And even though you meant well, your friend might start avoiding you, not because you were wrong, but because you made them feel small on a day they wanted to feel big. That's how dangerous unintentional rudeness can be. So how do we avoid this? Again, it comes down to awareness. Before you speak, especially in emotionally charged moments, ask yourself 3 questions. Is this the right time to say this? Am I adding value or just showing that I'm right? What does the other person need in this moment? Support, advice, or just someone to listen? If the answer is not clear, pause, hold back, save your advice for later. Respect isn't just about using polite words. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to uplift and when to hold back a critique. This one skill, alone understanding timing and emotional context, can change how everyone sees you. Colleagues, friends, family, even strangers. And the best part, it doesn't cost you anything, just a bit of thought, a few seconds of reflection. So remember, being right is easy. Being kind and emotionally intelligent, that's real maturity. And that's what earns lasting respect. Have you ever felt like someone was looking down on you, even though you didn't do anything wrong? Maybe they didn't say it out loud, but you could feel it in the way they talked over you during a meeting, in how they interrupted you without apology, in how they didn't even notice when you were clearly upset or under pressure. And here's the most painful part. Sometimes it's not strangers who do this to us. Sometimes it's people we work with every day, people we care about, even people we once thought respected us. It's easy to feel confused or even hurt when that happens. You start asking yourself what you did wrong. Was I too soft? Did I not speak up clearly enough? Or maybe, am I just not worth their respect? But let me tell you something that might completely change the way you look at these situations. One of the biggest reasons people don't respect us is because we accidentally teach them that it's okay not to. I know it sounds harsh, but it's true. Many times, without realizing it, we give people permission to treat us the way they do. Not through our words, but through our silence, through our immediate reactions, through the way we ignore small things that actually matter. There's a quote I really like from Dr. Phil McGrath, a well-known psychologist in the US. He said, "You teach people how to treat you, and it's true. Every time you let someone interrupt you without addressing it, every time you say it's fine when it's really not." Let's take a real-life example so you can see exactly how this plays out. Imagine this. You're in the office, deeply focused on a report that's due in an hour. You're finally getting into the zone. Then, suddenly, a younger colleague rushes over, taps you on the shoulder, and says, in a panicked voice, "Hey, my laptop just crashed, and I can't send my files. Can you help me? It's really urgent." Now, if you're like most people, your first instinct is probably to help. Maybe you say yes immediately. Maybe you pause your work, stand up, and go fix their problem right away. After all, you're kind, you're helpful. You don't want to seem cold or selfish. But what just happened? Without realizing it, you taught that person something important. You taught them that their emergency is more important than your priorities. You taught them that you're available anytime they need something, no matter what you're doing. And one day, when you're truly overwhelmed and say, "I can't help right now," they might get upset. They might say you've changed. They might even act as if you're the one being unreasonable. All because you set a pattern from the very beginning. So what should you do instead? It's about responding with thought and boundaries. And there are just 2 steps to doing that. Step 1. Do not react immediately. This is where most people fail. They hear a request and feel the pressure to respond right away. But here's your power. Pause, take a breath. You can still be kind and say something like, "Give me a moment," or "Let me finish this real quick." This pause is gold. It gives you time to think, to ask yourself, how do I want to be treated? What's the message I want to send right now? Step 2. Respond in a way that teaches respect. For example, in the situation I mentioned earlier, you can say, "I'm in the middle of something really important right now. First, your time matters. Second, they have to wait. Third, they might find a way to solve it on their own during the wait. And fourth, when people have urgent problems in the future, they'll think twice before rushing to you unless it's truly necessary." And the best part, you still help. You're still kind, but you're also respected. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't make them feel bad. You just showed that your time, your energy, and your priorities matter too. This is what it means to teach people how to treat you with calm, clear boundaries. And you know what's beautiful about this? It gets easier over time. The more you respond like this, the more people adjust. They stop interrupting you every 5 minutes. They stop assuming you'll fix everything for them. And they start treating your time and you with the respect you deserve.